Detention facilities. On August 24, 1939, F.B.I. Director J. Edgar Hoover met with President Roosevelt to talk about a detention plan for the United States, conceivably to deal with a wartime scenario. This was implemented in March 1942 for Japanese Americans in the western United States, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, when Roosevelt signed Executive Order No. 9066, which directed the Army to intern up to 112,000 in concentration camps. On August 3, 1948, Hoover met with Attorney General J. Howard McGrath to come up with a plan that would enable President Truman to suspend the Constitution in the event of a national emergency. The plan was called Security Portfolio, and if activated, would authorize the FBI to summarily arrest up to 20,000 people and have them placed in national security detention camps without the right of a hearing. It charged the FBI to develop a watch list of the type of people who would be detained, as well as information about their physical appearance, their family, and place of employment. With the Internal Security Act of 1950, a declaration of war by Congress, an invasion of the U.S. or any its territories, or a domestic insurrection, would enable the President to declare an emergency, and give the Justice Department special powers to apprehend and by order detain each person as to whom he, the Attorney General or such officer so designated, finds that there is a reasonable ground to believe that such person may engage in, or may conspire with others to engage in acts of espionage or sabotage. These detention centers were set up at Army facilities in Avon Park, FL, Tull Lake, CA, Wickenburg, Oz, and Allenwood, PA. However, Hoover wasn't happy with the law because it did not suspend the Constitution, and it guaranteed the right to a court hearing, habeas corpus, and the FBI continued to secretly establish detention camps, and detailed seizure plans for thousands of people, while Hoover continued to pressure McGrath to officially change his position and allow Hoover to ignore the 1950 law in lieu of the original plan of 1948. On November 25, 1952, the Attorney General gave in to Hoover. In 1968, during the riots, a congressional committee stated that acts by guerrillas in the United States was compared to being in a state of war, and detention areas were discussed for the temporary imprisonment of warring guerrillas. Americans were concerned about this talk, and in 1971 Congress passed legislation that repealed the Emergency Detention Act of 1950. However, there was other legislation that provided for the existence of detention centers. In December 1975, the Senate held hearings which revealed the continuing plans for internment. The report Intelligence Activities, Senate Resolution 21 revealed their secret agenda. The hearings revealed documents, memos, and testimony by government informants which painted the picture of a government that wanted to monitor, infiltrate, arrest and incarcerate a segment of Americans. The existence of the Master Search Warrant, which authorized the FBI director to search certain premises where it is believed that there may be found contraband, prohibited articles, and other materials in violation of the proclamation of the President of the United States, and the Master Arrest Warrant, by authorization of the U.S. Attorney General. The head of the FBI is empowered to arrest persons who I deem dangerous to the public peace and safety. These persons are to be detained and confined until further order were revealed. In 1982, the Reagan administration initiated the National Security Directive 58, which allowed Robert McFarlane and Oliver North to use the National Security Council to reorganize FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, into an agency that would be equipped to manage the country during a national emergency. During the Reagan years, a secret program identified as Operation Rex 84 was initiated by our National Security Council, and authorized the establishment of 23 emergency detention centers for the purpose of detaining a large number of potentially subversive people. Rex would enable the President to declare a state of emergency, suspend the Constitution, and empower the head of FEMA to take control of the internal infrastructure of the country. The Rex exercises simulated an act of civil unrest that culminated in a national crisis that initiated a contingency plan to be able to accommodate the detention of 400,000 people. It was so secretive that there were reports that special metal security doors were installed on the 5th floor of FEMA's building, and even longtime officials of the Civil Defense Office were denied entry. The cover story for the exercise was to see how our country would handle an influx of refugees resulting from a war in Central America. But in truth it was about the detainment of American citizens. Through the Rex 84 program, it had been reported that the following bases were to be used for civilian detention centers: FT, Huachuca, Oz, FT, Chaffee, R, Vandenberg Air Force Base, CA, Eglin Air Force Base, FL, Camp Crome, FL, FT, Benning, GA, FT, Indiantown Gap, PA, Camp AP, Hill, VA, FT, Drum, NY, Wickenburg, Oz, Elmendorf Air Force Base, AK, Eelson Air Force Base, AK, Tull Lake, CA, El Reno, OK, Tulsa, OK, Florence, Oz, Maxwell Air Force Base, AL, Mill Point, WV, Allenwood, PA, Oakdale, CA, and FT. McCoy, Y. An additional 20 centers were funded with the 1990-91 defense budget and another 43 were commissioned. An insider has said that there are at least 130 detention facilities in the country. Even though the directives that brought about Rex 84 have been eliminated, it is believed that the government's plans for these detention centers are now being carried out under the guise of the U.S. Military Base Closure and Realignment Commission, BRAC. Coincidentally, Huachuca, Chaffee, Eglin, and Indiantown Gap were on early BRAC lists. Another 100 bases may be closed or realigned in 2005. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has priority to use any excess space on U.S. government. Army documents have indicated plans for establishing civilian camps on Army installations. One such base that was closed was the Seneca Army Depot, near Seneca Falls, in northern New York. It was discovered that major construction was underway, and it was reported by the Spotlight that it was being prepared for conversion into a massive civilian detention center. The office of Senator Alphonse D'Amato, RNY, announced that a large part of the base was going to be turned over to the National Guard, who, it was believed, would oversee the facility. At nearby Fort Drum, the location of the Army's 10th Mountain Division, who have been utilized as UN peacekeepers, was also slated to be used as a detention facility. In 1997, it was revealed that since 1989, a civilian inmate labor program was in place at Fort Bliss, TX, Fort Dix, NJ, and Camp Atterbury, IN, where the Army was using incarcerated civilians to perform building maintenance and renovation, landscaping and grounds work, and custodial work. Under the facade of civilian labor camps, it is believed that some detention facilities are being established or renovated. In the mid-1990s, an important discovery was made that really hit home about government's plans for martial law. At the Amtrak railcar repair facility at Beech Grove, in Indianapolis, Indiana, there were about 10 maintenance barns, covering 129 acres, which is secured by 2 separate fences that lean inward. There are 3 helicopter 25-knot aviation wind socks, as opposed to 10-knot socks which are required for chemical storage, high-security turnstiles, and high-intensity security lighting. The boxcar building fence was marked with a red/blue zone sign. One of the barns is large enough to put 4 boxcars in it, and at the top are motorized vents to vent fumes out of the building after the cars have been fumigated. Since the initial observations and photographs were taken in August 1994, a January 27, 1995 article in the Indianapolis News about the layoffs at the facility said, late last year, Congress ordered Amtrak to spend at least $5.9 million patching holes in the roof and fixing masonry on the walls of the giant machine sheds at Beech Grove. Now they are airtight and have been outfitted with newly installed 6-inch pipes and 2-story hot air furnaces. It was done with the hopes the yard may be able to solicit work repairing private train cars, and perhaps subway cars from Washington, D.C., or other urban areas. Yet the complex was closed. The consensus among researchers and patriots is that when martial law is declared, this facility will become a death camp, and be used as a Nazi-style gas chamber, that will be manned by foreign troops. On 7420 South MacArthur Boulevard in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, south of the Will Rogers World Airport, built at a cost of $80 million, is the only Federal Transfer Center, FTC, facility in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It can process up to 100,000 people at a time, and it is believed that this will be the central destination for all detainees. It is likely that it will be coordinating their efforts with Federal Detention Centers, FDC, which are located in Honolulu, Hawaii, Seattle, WA, Los Angeles, CA, Houston, TX, Miami, Florida, Oakdale, LA, and Philadelphia, PA. Information about the red/blue that appeared on the sign list surfaced in June of 1996 when an FBI agent had gotten a copy of the Region 3 blue list from a CIA agent, and found that his name was on it, as well as other people that he knew in Virginia. It is the same system used by the Nazis, according to the 1966 book The Story of the Nazi SS, The Order of the Death's Head by Heinz Hohne. The sign indicates that this facility will handle Category 1, red, and Category 2, blue, detainees, and will be used for executions. A U.S. Air Force manual, Garden Plot, Plan 55-2, outlined a plan called Operation Cable Splicer to identify and target resistors, and to detain and incarcerate them. Martial law is established when the writ of habeas corpus, or the right to have a trial by jury, is suspended, and you are taken right to jail. People on the red list are slated to be picked up immediately upon the initiation of martial law. The scenario is that it will be done late at night, with detainees from that area being taken to a black, unmarked CH-47 Chinook, 64 passenger helicopters where they will flown to one of 38 cities, then put on a jet to a detention facility where they will be executed. People on the blue list will be picked up within 6 weeks after the declaration of martial law, and they could either be transferred to another detention center for re-education or be executed. The green list is for those people who are ignorant of the secret machinations of the New World Order, and do not present a threat to what they are doing. In the past few years, researchers have combed public records, solicited eyewitness accounts, and have sought informers in order to piece together the locations of detention centers or concentration camps, which are now reported to be in place all over the country, mostly in sparsely populated areas. There are several lists on the internet, all variations of the same one. I considered reproducing the list for this book, but I decided against it because I preferred to have a more substantiated and corroborated list. One telltale sign of these facilities is that they have fences that point inward, as well as barbed wire, which means they are intended to keep people in, not out. They are usually located near a body of fresh water or freshwater source, a railway system, major highway, or a large airport, have guard towers or buildings, have wind socks, maybe a helicopter landing pad, and contain a large number of buildings which would have the capability of holding a large number of people.